Hello and welcome to the Corrie Does Drugs episode of Conversation Street.
Oh, it sounds so edgy.
This is the bonus YouTube upload, which was taken from Conversation Street episode 298, where we talk about all the drugs that there are and why they're bad for you.
But good for Corrieline story potential.
Corrieline storyline.
Corrieline.
Exactly.
Corrie.
So,
This was, we recorded this back when Billy was having a bit of a tough time, wasn't he? And shooting up in the aisle.
Yep, and now we've got a different sort of drug storyline with Simon and his little gang of ne'er-do-wells. So hope that you enjoy this very irreverent discussion of drugs.
But you learned something. I was like proper educated when we talked about this because I'm an innocent boy and I don't know things. And
yeah, if you ever wanted to be taught something by people who have no idea what they're talking about, I'm surprised you haven't listened to the podcast before now. So enjoy.
Okay, Gemma, you ready to do drugs?
Yeah.
Illegal drugs.
Just do drugs together.
We'll do drugs together. Not really do drugs, everybody.
Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad. We're going to talk about
them.
Drugs on Coronation Street because there's a lot of them flying around recently. With the local drug taking vicar. Mm-hmm. Just kind of the normal kind of thing that happens every day, shooting up in church or whatever. And so we thought it'd
be shooting up the church. That's an American problem.
We're going to be very uncontroversial in this segment, as you can tell.
We're going to try our best, but as usual, we approach everything with reverent humour.
Yeah, and we're going to look back at how much drug use there has been in Coronation Street, and kind of look whether it does reflect real life or not. Not that we're particularly experts on it, as you could tell by last week when I didn't know what I was talking about. I do now because I've done some research,
done some drugs.
Yeah,
right.
And also we don't know what we're talking about because we don't do drugs, nor ever have, and
we don't do illegal drugs.
I'm just because you're some massive lush, it doesn't mean that I am.
You take paracetamol and ibuprofen.
True. Okay, so
you've had more prescriptions than I have too.
Fine, whatever.
So you're a drain on the NHS.
But we are not one of the third of the population, aged 16 to 59, who have apparently taken drugs, illegal drugs, at least once in their lifetime, which was a shockingly high number to me. Although you thought it'd be more, didn't you?
I thought it'd be like 90%.
Your halo is glowing less brightly now because
I always just thought that everyone else took drugs.
Well, apparently
or had
not.
taken them because I was thinking marijuana basically, and I always thought that people thought I was strange that I didn't.
I'm sure some people do. I know some people that have taken marijuana.
No, you don't.
Do.
Oh my goodness, who is it?
It's not me. I'm not telling you that, blooming out. All right, so
what? I'm really confused now.
I'll tell you
later.
What
are you talking about?
I'll tell you later. If you remember to ask me. So yeah, that's a third of people aged 16 to 59 have taken illegal drugs once in their lifetime in the UK. And about 1 in 12 adults aged 16 to 59 have taken in the past year even. 1 in 5 between 16 and 24. Apparently, the people who are most likely to take illegal drugs are younger, male, urban-dwelling pub users, which does seem to count a lot of the people we see in Coronation Street, really, doesn't it?
That's true.
So maybe we've come to the conclusion there's not enough drugs in Coronation Street to reflect real life. I don't know.
Just to make this clear, we're talking about the UK.
Of course,
surely.
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. So we thought we'd have a
Hang on, I've got to do my thing.
Oh, Gemma has got more facts. She's done her own little research this week.
Yeah, exactly. Now I have decided to look up what type of drugs are there.
This is a proper drug education lesson for everyone. So if you're as what's the word?
Curious? What?
No.
Druggy? What are you asking?
What's it called when you don't know something? Ignorant. Ignorant. As I was last week and still am. Then hopefully I'll educate you. I'm a teacher after all, believe it or not.
Listen, right. So the different types of illegal drugs. Recreational drugs. Okay? Because there are other things like steroids and stuff. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about illegal recreational drugs. They fall into 3 main category types. The first one is depressants, which slow down the messages between you and your brain. They're sometimes called downers, like alcohol.
I was going to say alcohol's a depressant, isn't it?
Alcohol's not illegal. Opiates. It's like heroin and morphine. That is a depressant. Cannabis is sedatives, glues, petrols, and other solvents. So it says if you're taking depressant drugs, stick to one type. Don't take lots of them all at once.
Useful advice.
Large amounts of them can make you pass out, stop you breathing, make you feel nauseous, or make you throw up, which is why Billy was running for the sink.
The other week, yeah.
Stimulants, so they are also called uppers, and you are drinking one right now, caffeine. See, that's not illegal, neither is nicotine, but amphetamines like speed or ice, ecstasy, cocaine.
I don't even know that one.
Don't know. Put a strain on your heart, they can increase your body temperature, they make you paranoid, anxious, or psychotic. Don't combine them, same as with depressions, it can make you very unhealthy.
Yes.
And then I would say the best category is hallucinogens. They change your perception of reality.
They're not the category that you would recommend, of course, are they, Gemma? Because we're not recommending drugs on this podcast.
I'm not going to recommend anything I haven't tried myself. But you can, you can have LSD, magic mushrooms, ecstasy, mescaline, and very high doses of cannabis.
I forgot about magic mushrooms. I haven't even mentioned this in my notes today because Kathy was on magic mushrooms the other week, wasn't she?
Yeah, I don't think they were illegal in the UK for a long time. And then they suddenly got made illegal before I had a chance to try them.
I think when you think about hallucinogenics, when you mean they're the best kind, you do actually mean they're the ones that when you watch a character on television taking them, that's usually the funniest, as in the case of Kathy and Izzy. I don't know.
No, I meant that they're the best for opening your mind to a wide range of perceptions of reality. So when you have an hallucinogen, you go on a trip.
Yes.
Yeah. And you see things that aren't really there. And they can make you feel panicky, anxious, paranoid, take risks you wouldn't normally take, or lose touch with reality.
Yeah.
Which I feel like maybe some of the writers of Coronation didn't say that it was because of taking hallucinogens,
don't finish your sentence. Oh my God.
Never finish a sentence, because then you can't be accused of anything.
Heroin first,
That's
which
the end of my
Billy's
segment.
Current favourite tipple. And we've got a few little facts about it, and we're going to talk about when they've appeared in Coronation Street.
Talk about the other way of classifying drugs, which is not what they do to you,
how illegal
but
they are.
How illegal they are. So you've got Class A, which, I'm just going to say this, Class A gets you up to 7 years in
I've
prison.
got all this later.
No, you haven't.
I have, look. This literally, I've written here,
no,
Class A.
You haven't talked about them all at once. Class A gets you up to 7 years if you possess it, but if you deal it, you can be up life in prison for Class A.
I know.
Class B, you can be up to 5 years in prison for taking it or having it, up to 14 years in prison for dealing it. In Class C, up to 2 years in prison for possession, up to 14 years in prison.
Thank you very much.
So don't do drugs or deal them.
No. Heroin. This is Billy's one he's on at the moment. So this is a white powder, although it can be brownish white, apparently street heroin, depending on what it's cut with, which I think means what it's mixed up with.
Of course it does.
Not the knife that they use to chop it into bits. So this can be smoked or dissolved and injected. If it's pure, it can be snorted. This is an opiate. It's made of morphine, which is an extract of the opium poppy, and it's can be a very strong painkiller, which makes sense because of what Billy needs it for at the moment. Now, in small doses, apparently, this can give you a...
Don't stop saying apparently
allegedly,
or whatever.
Gives you a feeling of warmth and well-being, but if you take too much, you can get a bit sleepy and relaxed with it. It can also bring a bit of dizziness and vomiting, especially for your first time. But obviously, there are bigger risks than that. You can go into a coma or even die because of it. One of the ways you can die is if you inhale your vomit when you're sick as well.
Always put heroin users in the recovery position.
Apparently, if you keep taking it for long enough, you can build up a tolerance to some of these...
drugs?
Yeah, but if you stop using them just for a few days, then that tolerance rapidly drops, and then people go back to taking a larger amount like they used to, and then their bodies can't cope with it. So it's very dangerous.
So really, it's important to keep going.
Well, or trying to get off it in some other way. It's quite cheap though, apparently, which is...
No, when you're starting out, it's just like any hobby.
Yeah, but at the beginning, £10 a bag,
and it gets
apparently.
out of hand.
Yeah, according to... it was the Frank website that I went to get all my statistics from, and £100 a day can be what it costs for if you've got a habit for it, which you're going to run out of cash pretty quickly and end up selling your adopted daughter's PlayStation or watch.
Yeah. So in 2011 in Coronation Street, there was a mention of... Is this the first time it was mentioned?
I think so. I mean, we'll get the picture from talking today that there wasn't that much Coronation Street drugs on Coronation Street until the turn of the millennium, and then it's just kind of overrun since then. Faye's mum died of a heroin overdose. We found out in 2011. There was also a story there, and I think this is heroin, although I really tried hard to find out whether this is heroin, but all I could find out was drugs. But this is when Fizz went to prison. Do you remember that? Because of
she's naughty.
She wasn't naughty. Her husband was naughty, and she took the blame for it. It was all John State's fault.
Stupid woman.
So one of our prisoners, Ruth, who was played...
Fellow prisoners, not one of her prisoners. She went to prison and got her own prison in prison.
One of her fellow prisoners, Ruth, and she was played by Bev Callard's daughter, in fact, Rebecca.
Wow.
I know. She was using her baby to smuggle drugs into prison.
Don't do that, people.
That sounds a bit risky to me. Fizz didn't know whether to report her or not, because she obviously was a good girl.
Or join in.
Well, I don't think she thought about joining in, but the quandary in prison is if you get...
You don't want to be a snitch.
Snitches get stitches,
exactly.
Don't they? So Fizz didn't get herself stitches, so she
got beaten up.
Oh yeah, but she got beaten up at least. She reported it and got beaten up. You're right. Now after this, Tyrone back outside of prison, and his cronies like Kirk followed Ruth's boyfriend on a drug deal because they wanted to sneak him and watch him and film him doing the deal, but I don't think they were able to film him, and instead they knocked him out. Apparently they snuck up behind him and Kirk knocked him out with a mannequin's dummy arm or something, so it was a comedy drugs bust. And then they tied him up in the old butcher's shop. Do you remember that? It was only like 6 years ago. I think it was in the period between Fred dying and then it's a community centre that's in there now, isn't it? And but Kirk still had the keys to it, so they tied him up, and Norris ended up finding him, and he ended up getting arrested for breaching his parole. Not Norris, no, he's never done anything wrong in his life. Fizz, in retaliation to this, got her cell turned over, and she was eventually brave enough to stand up to Ruth. Good on you, Fizz. Yep, say no to drug dealers.
2016 was when we first were introduced to Billy's brother Lee, who is an ex-con heroin addict who'd fallen on hard times. I don't think there's much else happens to you when you're on drugs. I think you're pretty much falling on hard times, aren't you?
Yeah.
Billy tries to keep their family relationship a secret from Todd, but he had to confess when Lee stole from the florists.
See, look what being doing heroin can make you do. Steal from florists.
It's bad, isn't it?
Think of that poor Tracey.
Think about this poor flowers.
I know.
Lee later had to be rushed to hospital after a heroin overdose.
Yes. And it was the fact that he'd already been through all this with heroin, which made it odd when he was doing heroin in the church with Billy the other week, when he was saying, "Oh, this must be what heaven feels like." I told you
this, though, didn't I say? It's only to make it sound more dramatic so that the grannies get riled up.
Yes. Which was my great aunt, who was the one that celebrated her 80th birthday this last year, sent us that newspaper clipping the other day, didn't she? Complaining after it was probably from the Mail or something, moaning about Corrie's gone too far, drugs in church, and and it had the same picture that we used as our Twitter picture for the podcast last week. It was quite funny anyway, but yeah, she's on a bit of a downer with Coronation Street at the moment.
Oh, a downer, like a depressant.
Coronation
like
Street is a downer for her at the moment.
2017, Seb's mum Abby had a heroin overdose.
Yes. And then who was it? Faye and Seb found her, didn't they? They had to get her rushed into hospital.
Don't do it, kids.
Yeah, and then that's it for heroin, apart from all the recent stuff with Billy. So that is heroin on Coronation Street. Ecstasy now. Glamorous Assistants. Tell us about Ecstasy, the 90s drug.
Ecstasy was the one that they were always making us paranoid about at school. Like going, if anyone gives you a bit of rice paper or a sticker, don't eat it. I don't know what you do with it. We were at school during the height of Ecstasy. You know,
the
craze. What was that song? Easy Good. And he was like, it's not about ecstasy, and then later he's like, yeah, it's totally about ecstasy. Anyway, that is also a class A drug, so
no laughing matter.
Don't take it or deal it. Usually sold in colourful logo stamped tablets, sometimes as powder. What was the sheets then?
I don't know. I think somebody was trying to get you to knock off.
Michael, what do you think? Do you think I was being offered drugs? I've never been offered drugs.
No, I haven't ever been offered drugs. Your teacher just didn't know what they're talking about then. This is why it was so popular, I think, wasn't it? Because they were all colourful and they had smiley faces and whatever that's stamped onto them.
Everyone enjoyed colourful things in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
We were very colourful, loving people. Now we're more beige and greys.
Like tie-dye T-shirts, shell suits.
Just say no. It was the original designer drug, high profile due to links with the dance music culture in the 80s and 90s. Clubbers took them to feel energised and happy.
Yes.
Sounds lovely. They can make music in colours more intense, but they can also cause anxiety, and also, just like other illegal drugs, they're not always pure. So you don't know what you're taking, could be anything.
No, I mean, if it's in a pill...
You can die.
Yeah, you can get liver, kidney, heart problems. It can be pretty bad. And that's when we first met them in Coronation Street in 1995, which is, as far as I could tell, I think I'm right in saying this was the first proper mention of drugs or a drug story in Coronation Street back in 95. And even then, that wasn't really a mega story, because Tracey ended up taking a bad ecstasy tablet, so something that had been cut with something dodgy, I guess. And she ended up having to have a kidney transplant, which is why she's only got one kidney now. And poor old Samir is no more. Deirdre could have been happily married to him for the rest of her life.
Think of the victims of drugs.
So I don't know back in 95 whether Tracey was even like in the show very much, or whether she just came back into it because of the kidney, because of the ecstasy problem. Not sure, but
I think I was talking about LSD, which is on a sheet of paper.
Ah, there you go. I don't think they've had any LSD on Coronation Street.
Well, let's get on with it.
There's a new idea for Kate Oates.
I think LSD is a bit, old-fashioned.
Well, I think ecstasy sounds a bit old-fashioned. Because you don't really hear about it much these days, do you?
It's all about the opioids now.
The only other time, as far as I could tell, that ecstasy had been mentioned in Coronation Street, or featured in Coronation Street, was back 10 or 11 years ago, when David hid some inside Bethany's teddy bear, which we talked about last week in the Bethany character profile. So Daryl Morton, who lived next door to David, was looking after them for his mate, and then he asked David to look after him for him. So yeah, Bethany's teddy got or doll or whatever it was, got an ecstasy tablet shoved in it. Bethany finds it. She's only 7 years old at the time. Not good. Rushed to hospital, falls into a coma, and takes a little while to recover from that. Later on in the year, though, as you might remember, Sarah got her own back on David by planting ecstasy in his drawer at the salon, and then he couldn't go over to Milan to work.
Drugs to children.
No, definitely not.
No.
Next up, Speed.
Yeah.
Not Doris Speed, played Annie Walker. That's a bit different.
Amphetamine sulfate, Class B. It's not as bad as Class A, but you're still going to get 5 years for...
Up to 5. All of this is up to 5 years, and if you supply
unlimited fines.
Yeah, exactly. And if you supply it up to 14 years in prison.
Off-white or a pinkish powder, and you can dab it on your gums or snort it into lines, but you shouldn't do either.
No.
Used to keep yourself awake, alert, but it can make you crazy.
Can lead to agitation, psychotic episodes. So we saw a little bit with this with Kylie in 2014. Which the whole Callum storyline was kind of speed related, I think. I mean, there's been a number of like characters that have been drug dealers in Coronation Street. Callum's obviously, I would say, the biggest name of them all, after Jez Quigley, but he first came into the show because Kylie was taking Max's ADHD medicine to cope with the stress of looking after him because he was crazy. And then David goes to Wythenshawe to meet up. I know, Wythenshawe, all the dodgy types come from there, I tell you. Yeah. Meets up with her ex, Callum. So she starts using speed from him, and then she starts getting closer to Callum.
Do you think drug dealers specialise in a certain type of drug, or do you think they just do anything? I think if you like have marijuana, I think you not necessarily have more hardcore stuff, but I think if you probably deal in like the really bad stuff, you probably would have anything. I'm
sure there are drug dealers that will get you anything, but others are more specialist boutique, like you said.
Like boutique, yes, bespoke.
I don't remember whether Callum dealt in anything other than speed. He probably did, because he was a bit of a wrong 'un after all, but this is how it all started, and David discovered Kylie's speed taking habits as when Callum came to visit around Christmas Day. So he kicked Kylie out on the streets, and that was how poor Elaine had her nice maternity leave as Kylie was kicked out. So,
yeah, but you should never benefit from drugs, so she shouldn't have taken that time off.
No.
Callum continues to sniff around after David tries to hunt Collie down at his flat, tries to get him arrested for shoplifting, and he also tried to get Andy to plant drugs in his car.
I remember that. That was so funny. And Andy was like...
Andy just...
Yeah. And anybody's lacking is Andy, basically, isn't he? And then he got caught, didn't he? And got taken into the back of the Dog and Gun, tied up. Is that right? Am I remembering it right? And then David comes in and they do a little switcheroo. And then David gets taken off to a warehouse somewhere. But I imagine that was... It could have been speed, but then I don't know how David would have got hold of it to plant it on Callum, so probably not. Katie then starts dating Callum. As far as I remember, she doesn't really seem to mind that he was a drug dealer, because I think he told her, "Oh yeah, it was in the past. I'm not anymore." And Katie had low standards, to be honest.
Well, if he's got a load of cash, don't ask questions.
Weigh it up. He was also getting Bethany to deliver his drugs for him. Making Bethany pose with a spliff, which we'll get to later, and there was also
lingo.
I know I'm learning all the lingo. I was going to go through all the street names as well, but I thought let's keep it about Corrie. There's also in that story. Do you remember the scene where they went to the drugs clinic and Gail was looking really haggard because she'd just been doing a Mrs. Mop routine at the Bistro or Rovers or wherever it was she was working, and then the drugs counsellor comes in and they're all sitting in the room, and the counsellor talks to Gail as if she's the addict, and it takes a minute, and Gail's like, "Hang on a minute, I'm not the drug addict here."
Silly old Gail.
Very funny. So yeah, that's about
drugs
it for speed.
Drugs aren't funny or good.
No, exactly. We've got to keep saying that.
Just to remind you, everybody.
Just in case you're feeling tempted by any of this, they're not good.
They're too expensive. Don't bother. Now, spice, synthetic cannabinoid,
most recent
class
new
B,
drug on Coronation Street.
Solid or oil, which you add to dried plant matter to make a smoking mixture. But you shouldn't do that because it's bad for your lungs. Apart from anything else, it can give you euphoric feelings. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to say pretty much all of these euphoric ones you can do yourself with a nice office chair that rotates. Get your friends to spin you around a few times.
Yeah.
And you might even be sick, just like with real drugs.
Fun, yeah. I agree.
And you can take it in turns if you want to. You don't have to meet nasty
well, you
men
never know.
down
If
alleyways.
you go down a dark alleyway at night, maybe there's a spinny chair dealer there.
Oh, got some nice leather.
Got it in leather, got it in blue
colour
fabric.
Do you want?
Yeah, this one goes up and down with a lever. So you've got wheels on, so you can be pushed along and spun at the same time.
I think you should go for the ones without wheels to start with, just so that you're not.
Yeah,
there's
go
too many variables there.
Exactly. Yeah, move up onto the wheeled ones later.
Yeah. Anyway, spice can also alter your perceptions and give you feelings of relaxation, but can cause psychotic symptoms, kidney failure, and heart attacks. And it is quite a timely.
Well, yes, this is the drug of the moment, isn't it?
In Corrie, yeah, because it was apparently pretty bad in Manchester last year. Don't know about this year, but
I don't know whether the situation's improved or not. But I did a little when I was searching for this. Even last year, I was looking for it a little bit, and apparently the situation is pretty dire in Manchester at the moment. And there was there's a reporter that was like, as for the feature that they were writing, went around the city, and they were like, outside the train station, there's people slumped on the steps in people's doors, like under bridges, like wherever you look. I'm sure it's not that bad, but that's what the article was making it out to. Yeah, all zoned out on spice.
Don't do it.
Coronation Street took advantage of this. Is that the right word? Or picked up on this and turned it into a bit of a story last year. They reflected it
in their art.
Yes, by making Summer collapse after smoking some spice last year. She'd been cajoled into it by it was Asher and Ardy and Simon, wasn't it? Was it Simon that gave it to her in the end?
Well, they found it on the floor, didn't they?
They found it on the playground or something, and they were like daring her to take it, and because she felt
sad.
She felt like she was not part of the friendship group, I think.
No, she didn't take it in front of them though. She took it by herself.
Yeah. I think
she didn't do it as a dare. She refused to do it in front of them.
It was not long after Drew died, was it? I think. It had been rumoured earlier on last year, actually, that Gina was going to be on Spice. I mean, I don't know whether it was from like pap shots of her looking zoned out because of a misery and a depression and a bipolar and everything. But if you look back for articles from about a year ago, it's like Gina Seddon to return as spice addict in new drugs Coronation Street storyline. But no, she's not on drugs at all. It was that nasty Summer who took them first. Now we're moving on now to the final two, which are the two biggies. These are cocaine and cannabis, which are the two
most popular drugs.
Most used drugs in the UK. Well, cocaine first. That's the second most commonly used drug in the UK, and it's a white powder that you can make into lumps or rocks when it is called crack cocaine.
And smack is heroin.
This is a little bit more...
I get confused because I say crack and smack is the same thing, but it's different.
Yeah. So
don't be fooled.
Difficult to keep up with all the lingo. This is more expensive than some of the other ones, from heroin at least, because a gram of powder costs £42, which sounds quite a lot for just a gram. But rock...
but you don't...
I don't know how much you need. A rock of it costs between £10 and £20, so maybe that's the way. No?
I would prefer... Well, you can either snort it in lines, or you can smoke it if it's crack.
Yes, indeed.
So I think that snorting is the more high class way to do it.
Well, that's how you see people doing it on TV, isn't it? Where they line it up with their credit card on movies, and a bit in Coronation Street as well. That's what you know that they've got
also
cocaine
celebrities
when
they get caught out with videos.
Quite often
in the tabloids, they are usually snorting it, or when people are sniffing.
That's how you can tell. Now, the problem with cocaine, or one of the problems, obviously, as far as I can tell, is that it's illegal. A short-lived stimulant. So it makes you feel good for a little bit, but before long, like within the hour or whatever, you feel like you need a little bit more.
It's just like coffee.
Crack is even stronger. And after that, when you eventually like, no, better not have any more,
that's enough for today.
Long come down, which can last a couple of days. Now, when you're on cocaine, it can make you overconfident. It can make you take careless risks. Inside, it's raising your body temperature. It can cause heart attacks, convulsions, and obviously, as Gemma said, with the snorting, you also get these celebrities or non-celebrities, normal people who
it affects normal people too.
Yeah, this is a risk for everybody who sniff it too much, and their septum in between their nose gets damaged.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad
we
news.
can all think of a celebrity
people.
that has
that more than one. Don't use it too much because it can make you anxious, paranoid, and depressed.
Don't use it at all.
Don't use it at all because it can make you anxious, paranoid, and depressed.
I'm not going to edit any of this, but I hope people...
And also, it's expensive. Like I said, how much does a chair cost? A really good office chair that you can spin, probably like the best one you can probably get is probably like...
$200?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas like £42 a line...
Yeah, and
just gets
that office
ridiculous.
chair is your chair for life, isn't it? Really?
And I mean, if you're using cocaine, because a lot of people use it if they've got stressful jobs. How much they earn in that £42 is like an expense.
Yes, well, this is one
Treat
of the
yourself
many
to a nice lunch out. Don't take drugs.
No.
Go somewhere nice for lunch.
Yeah, you appreciate it a lot more. Now, Jez Quigley, as I mentioned earlier, was the first big, drug dealer on the street, who first appeared in 1997. He's got a really interesting backstory, this character, because he was in one episode in 1997. He was an ex-associate of Steve, and Steve was down on his luck a little bit looking for a job, and he goes to Jez for a job, couldn't get one. Then, I think next year, or maybe it was the same year, I don't remember, I didn't write this down, he beat up and killed Tony Horrocks, who was Natalie Horrocks' son, who was the Rovers landlady towards the millennium, and she is played by... I can't remember. What's the name of the woman who plays Natalie? I don't know. Natalie Horrocks. Turned into Natalie Barnes. She's a famous person. Gemma's going to find that out for me. Sorry, lady. Anyway, he then returned on screen in 1999. So they needed another drug dealer, and they're like, "Oh, you remember?"
Welsh.
That's the one. Sorry, Denise. They wanted another drug dealer in 1999, and they thought, you know what, that Jez Quigley, who was a dodgy bloke, Lee Boardman, great actor, let's have him back. So 1999, he's back. he supplies cocaine to the saintly Leanne Battersby.
Leanne would never take cocaine or do anything illegal. No, she wouldn't. She's a lovely woman.
She's perfect mother. Simon just needs to find out all of what his mum's done.
He already
I can't
has, hasn't
wait.
he? I thought he had.
Does he? Oh, probably has, actually. You're right. Anyway, she gets addicted to cocaine thanks to Jez Quigley. She gets in a massive load of debt to him. She's forced to sleep with him. She also, with him, plans to let him rob the Rovers to get a load of cash because she owes him so much money. She's like, look, just come in after dark and you can nick it out of the till. But she backs out because she's good, really, although that does get her beaten up. And that is why Leanne left Coronation Street back that time ago, because there was a bit of chunk in time where the character was off screen and Jane was doing various other things like The Bill. 4 years she stayed away from Weatherfield. Eventually, Jez Quigley got beaten up by Jim McDonald. Didn't kill him straight away, although in hospital Jez went to see... Was it Jim or was it Steve? It was Steve, because Jez had Steve beaten up. And then as he was looking menacingly over him, he had a massive ruptured spleen, and that was the end of him. But he was a really great baddie. He's one of my favourite minor villains, definitely on Coronation Street, and it's a name that you recognise even though you've never seen him, is it?
Nope.
It's a cool name. The Z and the Q.
Oh, you don't get that very often.
That makes him really street. So this was our first appearance of cocaine on the street. Came back again in 2002 when Vikram, who is currently doing something on Emmerdale, apparently, the actor, owed some gangsters a load of money, so he stashed £100,000 worth of cocaine in Karen's suitcase when she was on her way back from Tenerife.
Drugs mule.
Exactly. Steve finds out about this, though, Steve being Karen's husband at the time, and he emptied all the drugs out into the canal.
Waste.
Which must have been a bit of a bummer for Vic.
Well, also, it's probably not good for the ecosystem, is it? All the fish are high.
I don't think there's anything alive in that canal, you know. Anyway, Vic was then forced...
You sound just like Pat.
Nothing alive in there, mate. Yeah, you can't drain it away. Vic is forced to move to Mumbai. And
Flee to Mumbai. Didn't just move there sedately with his boxes.
He's done a runner, and that's the last we saw of him.
Slug.
Do you remember Slug?
No.
Well,
I remember
read
the
my
name.
Notes about it, and maybe that will jog something.
He was very young, and he didn't live very long. 2006 to 2009, apparently.
Yes, he was in the show between those years.
No, that was my joke.
Oh.
An old flame of Becky's who gets involved with her. They steal Woody together, but then she dumps him. I thought that kind of thing brought you together, but obviously it tears you apart as well.
I think this was... I can't remember when Becky came onto Coronation Street, but I guess this was one of the earliest storylines, maybe.
He returned in 2009 and worked with Becky's adversary, DC Hooch.
Adversary.
To plant cocaine in her bag on her wedding day, getting her arrested.
Yeah, this is her second wedding to Steve, wasn't it? Remember, she was too drunk to get married the first time, and then she got married properly the second time. Everything was okay, but then there's a drugs raid at the Rovers, and she's got drugs in her handbag. DC Hooch was her arch enemy, who she'd had dodgy dealings with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
What next, Gemma?
2012, Tommy Duckworth smuggled cocaine in streetcars, taxis under orders from the loan shark Rick Nealon. And his debt was why what's her face? Tina ended up having a baby for...
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Well remembered, yeah, she needed some money, so she had Gary and Izzy's baby, yeah.
So drugs are bad, don't do them.
Yeah. Do you remember when Rick Nealon kidnapped Rita on her wedding day to...
Stuck her in a boot?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know whether she stuck
her in a boot. I remember again,
drove her to a canal and was going to push her in the canal or something when she was due to marry Dennis Tanner. And then we've got
love.
A not quite favourite character of ours, Ryan Connor.
Comes back to the street and offers Kylie cocaine. How rude. Michelle and Steve discover him snorting it in the toilets, and Michelle shops him to the police. He couldn't quit the habit, wanders into the road after a night with Sophie, and she gets hit by a car, and she becomes a lesbian with her physiotherapist
called Jenna.
Nearly
Gemma. Yeah, we hated Ryan, didn't we? And I was glad when he went.
Hated him.
Yeah, just anyone linked to Michelle, really. So Ryan is Michelle's fake son. Yeah? and he was played by Sol Harris when he came back.
She thought he was the real one.
Yeah, I don't think at this point she did.
No, I know, but she thinks he's a real son because she raised him.
Yeah. So he this is links to what we were saying earlier about it giving you a false sense of confidence, and he was like, "Yeah, I can walk into the road," and Sophie's like, "No,
I won't get hit by a car."
Gets hit by a car.
Well, she got hit by a car.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was right.
So drugs aren't just bad for the people who.
There's so many
take
victims.
them. Yeah, friends as well.
Don't take drugs. 2017, Rosie unwittingly brings cocaine into the UK and it gets hidden at the allotment, but Adam digs it up to sell it, and then Ken, what an ignorant fool he is, burns the money.
Yeah.
It's not the Queen's fault. Don't burn the Queen's picture.
That was not long before Ken had his clonk in the head, was it? Because this is when we were saying, everyone's got something to hate Ken about at the moment.
How strange. I wonder what will happen next.
That was a little bit of a comedy cocaine storyline, wasn't it? I mean, most of the other drug storylines we talked about so far have been like serious stuff, but having Rosie be an unwitting drug mule on the way back from where was she? She was in LA, wasn't she? That's just,
They probably add it to smoothies over there.
And then we've had a bit more cocaine later on in 2017 as well, with old Rich Collis, Robert's old ex-associate. Yeah, and we learned a little bit about Robert's past, and we thought he seemed to be quite, whiter than white, upstanding citizen. But apparently, when he used to be in the kitchen together,
but apparently, drugs. There's loads of drugs in the kitchens.
Apparently so. So
apparently, if you listen to some people talk about it, it's like half the chefs are high and the other half are drunk.
I suppose that's why you were kind of saying earlier. It seems like everybody does it.
Well, there's Kitchen Confidential by, I've forgotten the name of the chef, but he's a famous chef and he talks about it quite a lot in his book.
Oh, okay. Robert and Rich and his ex-girlfriend Catherine were working in the kitchen together and taking cocaine.
Lots of drugs.
And sadly, Catherine died because of this.
Because it's bad.
Yes, and Rich turns up in Coronation Street last year, and Daniel gets some cocaine from him. So do you remember that scene where Daniel got high on cocaine, and it was that was quite nicely acted, quite a good scene. Because he gets the cocaine off Richard, says, I'm buying this for Robert, or I'm taking this for Robert. He doesn't pay for it. He says, Robert will give you the money.
Pay back.
Yeah, and then this makes things a little bit awkward.
And then Rich is like, well, you owe me money, so launder drugs to the bistro for me, please. And then Robert gets Rich arrested because of the drugs. And then Will plants pills at the bistro and tells the police, and Michelle chucks them in a curry.
Yeah, that wasn't. I don't know what the pills were. It wasn't obviously cocaine.
The flavour.
No, that was just kind of the tail end of this story, because it was all a bit of a druggy summer at the bistro last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's been lots of drugs recently. Perhaps we should stop having drugs in it. But do you remember? I don't know which is more interesting to you, drugs or alcoholism? Because I feel like there was a stage at which everyone was an alcoholic.
I don't know whether everybody was, but it was Peter and Carla, and because they were so big characters. Yeah, I mean, Carla's alcoholism storyline really ran its course.
I don't know. I mean, the way people talk about consumption of alcohol in the UK compared to other countries, I don't see how you can tell the difference between an alcoholic and a normal British person.
Well, if you're an alcoholic, you end up having to have your kidney transplanted.
No, you don't.
Carla did.
No, we've had this discussion about 3 times on this podcast now. You can't say that it was down to her being alcoholic.
It might have been.
It's the liver
liver
that gets affected the most by being an alcoholic. Don't blame people who need kidney transplants for being alcoholics.
There are many reasons for needing a kidney transplant, I'm sure.
Like having duff kidneys, that's a big one.
Yeah, you can't really help having a duff kidney. Now, cannabis. So far,
everyone's favourite.
Well, so far all the storylines have been quite serious and hard-hitting. Oh, drugs were so edgy. But generally on Coronation Street, when cannabis is featured, it's been funny. Sometimes intentionally, mostly intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, which we'll get to as well.
Why should a plant be illegal, man?
So this is the most widely used illegal drug in Britain by far, I think, with cocaine in second. It comes from a plant, the cannabis plant, and there's different types of cannabis apparently. Hash, which is your black or brown soft lumps of it, and apparently though you don't get so much of that in the UK these days, apparently. And
how do you get that from a plant? I totally understand. I thought you made it out of the leaf, but I don't know if you do.
You do. I think you get it and mix it with oils.
No, but when it grows,
yeah,
there's like a little bud. I think that you use that.
I don't know.
I don't think you use the actual leaf.
I don't know. If anyone wants to write in and tell us, let us know. We'll keep anonymous if you want.
We won't tell anybody that you're a drug addict.
So there's the hash, and there's also grass/weed, which is what you hear about more these days, which is dried leaves, which is smoke.
You smoke it. We haven't spoken about which of these are addictive and which aren't.
I thought they all were.
No, cannabis isn't. I don't think people generally, because there's two types of addiction, isn't there? There's physical addiction, which things like opioids and stuff foster, and you don't have control over either of them. But that's one type of addiction. So like when you smoke, you have a physical addiction to the nicotine, right?
Yes.
But you also have like a psychological addiction to the habit of like the smoking and stuff, and the action and the ritual and the going outside and everything.
Yeah.
I don't think if cannabis is addictive, I think it's only addictive like like you can get addicted to anything. You can get addicted to, like I said last week, exercise. You can get addicted to
Coronation Street.
You can get addicted to
podcasts.
All right.
Yeah.
Shopping. No. It's not. It's like if you weren't able to go shopping, you wouldn't die of physical.
I honestly, I don't know.
What I mean? I don't think it's very addictive.
I'll bow down
and
to your higher knowledge on this.
I also think the same thing of cocaine. I don't know if that's.
Look it up on the iPad while I'm talking about it, then we'll know. We need to give
not
our listeners all the
people,
facts, exactly.
Because this is going to be used in court against us at some point. So we want to be respectful.
As well as smoking cannabis in a spliff, a cigarette-y thing, or a bong, you can mix it up with cookies or brownies or whatever, although apparently that does have more unpredictable effects. The main effects of cannabis being that you can feel very chilled out, happy, relaxed. It can make you hallucinate as well, but also it can make you feel paranoid, can make you feel anxious as well, and it can make you feel very hungry, which is called getting the munchies, which is what Shaggy apparently on Scooby-Doo seemed to have people say with the conspiracy theorists. Have you found anything yet?
Marijuana use can lead to the development of problem use, also known as marijuana use disorder. It's associated with dependence, where a person feels withdrawal symptoms when not taking the drug.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, it's not very addictive though, because I think that only 30% of people who use it
get addicted.
So it's not like, I would say like nicotine, for example, probably it's like 90%, because some people don't. Some people can just have the odd cigarette every now and then when they're drunk or something, but most people obviously don't.
Yeah, get addicted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, cannabis in Coronation Street then. So I believe it first appeared in 1996, as far as I could find out anyway. This was when Des Barnes and his neighbours Derek and Mavis Wilton were at each other's throats over the fence, basically, and Des kept pulling pranks on the Wiltons just for a laugh, and one of them involved giving Mavis a cannabis plant, and then I think she brought it into the Rovers, and like people said, "Oh, Mavis, what are you doing with that?" So that was obviously funny storyline. 1997, Spider Nugent, remember him? Of course.
Yes, of course I do.
Of course we remember Spider. Bring him back. He smoked cannabis at Emily's under the guise of them being herbal cigarettes, but apparently Emily did know that they were. I don't think she minded. I couldn't find much information about that, and I can't remember. I remember it happening, but I don't
Maybe
remember
she was one of these
details.
Christians who kind of views Jesus as the big old hippie and thinks he probably would have
I remember there was
up a doobie.
I remember there was a line where he was hiding it inside this little pot on the mantelpiece.
How ironic.
Well, exactly. And then because she finds out that that's where Spider's been storing it, and he sheepishly goes and gets it, and she says, "Ernest gave me that pot," and Spider's like, "No, I'm giving you mine," to hand it back over to her.
Isn't that hilarious?
God.
That is, tell you
Comedy
what,
gold.
That's proper good writing. That is. You don't get that these days.
Don't get that. Oh no.
No.
Yeah. Oh, blimey. What else did you have? I'll let you.
Jack
take
and
over
Vera
for a
in
bit.
2003 met Maz O'Loughlin.
I guess that's how you say
at
it.
their allotment, and got spaced out on hash brownies that she provided. And then Vera gets a recipe and unwittingly serves them at the church fundraising meet. How do you get the recipe and accidentally make pot brownies without pot?
Maz gave Vera these just a bag. She said, "Oh, it's just the herbs that I put them in." There was a scene where Jack and Vera
I would not trust anyone who put herbs in any sort of sweet dessert.
Well, it's like having, beetroot in brownies, isn't it? You can get I don't know why you would, but
I
apparently
don't think
you can.
herbs and beetroot are the same.
Well, Vera had tried these brownies and thought they were awesome because of how she got a little bit, spaced out by it.
Vera's very naive, isn't she?
Well, yes, she
She
is.
makes these, and then she gets Emily, Roy, Norris, and Rita very high, and then they realise that they are on drugs, and the police raid Jack's greenhouse.
Yeah, and the vicar was there at the meeting as well, but he didn't have a brownie. And there's quite a funny scene where he's watching.
Where was Maz growing?
I think that Maz gave Jack some to grow as well, and was like, "Yeah, have some of this and grow it, and then you can make your own."
It doesn't make any sense because he would be very quickly found out. Surely,
I'm sure Maz got in trouble for it as well.
2006. David is paid by a neighbour from the bookie's flat called Joe to walk a dog and look after her cannabis farm.
Yeah, there was a cannabis farm in the place where Billy's staying at the moment.
How
so,
weird.
It comes back. This is the time
He can probably just sniff the walls to get a good high off of it.
Yeah, I wonder
maybe.
if it lingers. This was a time when there wasn't like a proper permanent main character resident in that flat. There was like a period of 2 years where nobody really lived there, but for this purpose of this little mini storyline, there was this like, oh, this is Joe, and I don't even know whether Joe appeared on screen, but there was somebody living over there. And all we know about her was that she grew cannabis.
They had a water leak.
Yeah, David caused a water
dripped onto
leak.
the bookies, and so the cannabis farm was detected.
Exactly.
Did you hear that during the snow, I can't remember which police force it was, they found a massive cannabis farm?
No.
Because there was no snow on the roof. Because of all the heat, you need a lot of heat. That's why apparently they go around looking with heat infrared things, and they can see where you're growing cannabis, because a lot of people grow them in houses.
We had it grown in our pub down the road, didn't we? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
A few years ago.
Nobody offered us any, did they?
No. So coming a bit closer to the present day, you might remember Sylvia Roy's mum having cannabis brownies. She was given them by this bloke called Stan from the 1 O'Clock Club. He'd been using them because he'd had a car crash and he'd been taking them to get rid of his pain a little bit. So she tries one and not realising what they are, and gets high. And there was comedy washing up scene. Do you remember that, where she had the bubbles everywhere and was putting it over Roy like a beard? And it was another excuse just to have a laugh on somebody high on drugs, which, as I said, for cannabis,
it's okay. It's okay to laugh at it.
Yes.
Unless it's Izzy, which is unintentionally funny.
Our final story of the night.
2016, you probably don't remember this because it was quite subtle, but Izzy got hooked on cannabis after trying it as pain relief. She goes to a dodgy pub to buy some. She gets given oregano, or if you're not from the UK, oregano. Instead, she gets a bad reaction to stuff that gets given to her by Dane Captain Gingerbeard Everton. That was what we called him. I don't think he called himself Captain Gingerbeard. Then Gary eventually gets himself arrested after Sharif catches him on the gym CCTV. But I thought that's to do with steroids.
I think it was all linked in. It was all the same story.
There was lots of drugs going on.
Yeah, Izzy, drug-free year, don't we really?
I think everyone should go off drugs for a year and just see how you feel at the end of it. Izzy finds herself another dealer, invites him to her flat. She gets freaked out, and because the police arrive, he runs away.
The dealer does, yeah.
And she runs over a police officer's foot and spends the whole time complaining about the law, that it should be different for her because she's special, and ends up get sent to prison after she mouthed off to the judge.
Yeah.
And now she's fine and she doesn't need to take cannabis anymore.
She realised that she didn't want to risk having any more time away from her precious jerk.
I don't think it even came to that. I think it just came to the writers going, this didn't actually go anywhere, did it?
That story just didn't work on so many levels.
This was around the same time that the legalisation of
that's
medical marijuana
what it was for, wasn't it? It was
in America
we're being
was
current
becoming
with our medical marijuana story.
More and more popular, and now it's just recreationally legal in lots of places.
We said at the time that we wanted the story to end where like Izzy turns into a campaigner or something, and it just fizzles out, doesn't it?
She doesn't care about anyone but herself, though, does she? She wouldn't campaign for other people.
Yeah. Campaign for justice for Izzy and nobody else.
Yeah, everyone else can get it out.
So that as far as I could tell from my research,
those are the main drugs.
The main drugs that are featured on Coronation Street and when they are. So what do you think? You reckon Coronation Street is getting too druggy, or is it just...
It definitely seems to be increasing. The thing is, though, there's only a finite number of
types of story.
Yeah, and there's always going to... when you compare how much has this storyline been in the show now compared to earlier on, well, there's 6 episodes a week now, so there's going to be more of everything.
Fill it up with something. I just think that it's one of these things that it's like it's not going to be as hard hitting once you're used to it again. Like when Tracey had her ecstasy overdose, that must have been massive at the time. When I was only like 12 watching it, I don't really remember. But to have a character that we've seen grow up laid out on a hospital bed because of taking ecstasy, that would have been massive.
But we now... were like, when that happened though, wasn't there like a really famous case of? Yeah,
I think so. It was around the time. So again, it was very current, but it loses its impact.
It was Leah. So what year was that?
95.
No, what was it?
This was 95, Tracey.
Yeah, it was 1995 when Leah Bett.
That's a name that I haven't heard for a long time.
That was tragic. I just remember we were about this. Well, we were younger.
Yeah, 12, 13.
Yeah, and she was like the poster child for
don't take ecstasy.
And this very famous picture of her in the hospital bed. With the tubes everywhere in a coma, and she died.
So I think that probably back then the Tracey story would have had an impact on some people and hopefully did good for telling people not to have ecstasy.
I find it strange that Tracey, she must have had it before.
Why?
Well, because this happened in November 1995.
Well, I mean...
November 13th is not enough time for them to have written the story.
No, but I imagine it was still like in the news and everything. So
I think it was in the news before.
It must have been.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Like,
but a lot of the other nowadays, I mean, there are drugs in the news and everything, but it just doesn't have the same impact. Like when Daniel was out of it on his what was it that he was having again? I can't remember. Was he on cocaine? That was a good scene, but it wasn't as shocking. I mean, Adam had a drugs overdose the other week as well, didn't he? But then that was just a bit of a cliffhanger into the advert break. Izzy didn't, that wasn't that hard hitting because it was just a bit funny. So I think if they want to make an impact with a drug storyline again, they really need to lay off it for a few years. But I suppose it's an easy one to go for if you're, somebody like Kate Oates and you want to do a hard hitting dark storyline, then you're going to think of drugs, aren't you?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can say that about so many plots, like Affairs, too many of those, and Corrie's
I don't know. I mean, I can't really it does... sometimes you watch a story and it affects you personally. Drugs does not do that to me because I can't... It doesn't relate to my life.
Exactly. It's so far away from our lives. It doesn't make me think, but maybe it makes other people think. I don't know. I guess.
Well, I don't know.
I guess, like I said, in the ecstasy case, definitely it would do. And that the cannabis storyline with Izzy was supposed to get people talking about the legalisation of cannabis.
I feel very annoyed about that storyline because I felt that it was a missed opportunity.
It could have gone a whole lot better.
Interesting and could have fostered interesting discussions, but. Unfortunately, it was lost in the general mirth
of seeing Izzy going high.
Inadvertently, it created. It was just not. It was clumsily done.
Do you think that it's suitable to have all this drug taking before the watershed, or does that?
It's not down to me.
Does that not bother you?
Well, it's not down to me because number one, I don't have kids, so it doesn't really bother me. I'm starting to wonder how. I think the concept of watershed has got to go at some point. Because everybody watches things digitally anyway.
It's so easy for kids to just
become quite an
open up the Netflix or whatever.
Antiquated concept that nothing will be on before 9 o'clock that can offend children or their parents. More to the point,
it makes me wonder whether in the future, like, will there even be such a thing as broadcast television, or will it literally all be on demand? And obviously there'll be things that will appear to download at different times.
Well, the thing about Coronation Street is it relies on, this is what I said before about it being disposable entertainment, that relies on people consuming it regularly.
Yeah.
It's not like you can't binge watch Coronation Street.
No, I mean, you try it when you come back from holiday and it can be a bit much, can't it?
It's going to be I mean, this is just getting away from talking about drugs, but it's going to be challenging for them to maintain viewership when people don't watch shows the way they used to. But anyway, talking about watershed stuff, I don't know. I mean, if I had children...
I know, that's the thing. I mean, I know as a teacher I should care more about these things, but I never think about it. I never think, that's shouldn't be on before 9 o'clock, but
no,
maybe with kids then
really
I would.
Care. But if I had children, I don't know what I would... I think I would be more annoyed about sex.
I think so too.
And I know that people say that's like... people say that it's backwards, that you should care less about violence and more about sex, but, you know, I don't... Any child could have sex with another child, but not very many of them will get a knife and stab someone else or go find drugs and take them.
No.
You know what I mean?
That's
that's probably why people get more up in arms about sex being on television.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing you could argue about the drugs being on TV before the watershed is it's good for children to see it, because when we get taught, we have to teach drugs education at school. I mean, even at primary school, we have to teach a bit about drugs. I mean, I might just download this episode, put it on the interactive whiteboard, and put my feet up next time I have to teach it. There you go, children.
No, don't listen to this, children. The other. What?
So to have characters that maybe you watch, and I don't know how many kids watch Coronation Street really, especially younger ones. And if they do watch it with their parents, then that's an opportunity for parents to say,
teachable moment.
Don't you get like him?
Well, this is the thing that people have said, and I don't really remember much about drugs being taught at school when I went, but I know I've heard lots of Americans talking about how they had like Just Say No, and all drugs are equally as bad as the other drug, as other drugs. Actually, it was a negative message for young people to hear, because lots of people had tried cannabis and gone, well, you know, my life hasn't been destroyed, I'm not hooked on it, I don't need another.
Yeah, let's try something else.
So it can't be that bad. I guess that they were lying about everything, so I'm just going to take something else. So maybe, I don't know whether that's the case necessarily in the UK. I would assume not, because we do seem to have this kind of like tradition of thinking that cannabis is just somewhat comical and harmless, because I guess also we had magic mushrooms weren't illegal for a long time. I don't know, I can't remember anything about magic mushrooms.
No, I don't remember. I don't know much about that.
But I don't... what am I talking about?
Yeah, I mean, there's... You're right that there is the general feeling like, it's okay to take cannabis. And people who aren't generally kind of ashamed about even saying it in front of their friends, are they, sometimes?
No.
And that's probably a bit of a dangerous attitude, because...
Well, you can go either way, can't you? You can be like, I'm being sensible about this, and actually, you know, as long as you're doing it responsibly and not funding crime, I don't see the harm in a human being taking control of their own body and doing whatever they want. Or you could go the other route and say, all substances like that should be avoided, because... Yeah, and then that brings up should it be illegal for medical reasons as well, which people have got pros and cons of. Yeah.
We did when we did the Izzy storyline, but we won't go into that again here. But so the thing
it is with drugs is that Coronation Street hasn't really done as much, but probably more so with Callum, is talking about the crime that comes along with it, and that's probably more... I mean...
Yeah, and that also, was I mean, that had the gun and everything in it, didn't it?
The gun. The impact on addicts' families and them stealing from them and to fund their habits and everything. That's being explored more with Billy.
Yeah,
those are the real negative impacts, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because I don't really know what I think, because like I said, don't know anybody. I haven't got any addicts in the family that I know of. No.
But I'm sure everybody knows somebody who has taken drugs before, but maybe they just don't say about it.
Have taken it.
I mean, this is the thing, it's 1 in 3. So is it wrong to say that Coronation Street is not reflecting real life by having all these drug problems? Or would you say, actually, maybe there should be some more drug stories on Coronation Street? Because certainly 1 in 3 characters on Coronation Street haven't taken drugs.
You don't need to show everything.
No.
I mean, you know, 100 out of 100 people use the toilet at least once a day. I don't want to see it on Coronation Street.
Very true.
And talking about dark. 1 in 3 people taking drugs at least once in their life, that means that a third of the people listening to us now have taken drugs.
I know, and they're probably shaking their heads at us and going, "Oh, what a bunch of prudes."
Send in your personal drugs taking story to us, conversationstreet@gmail.com. We will report you to the authorities because we are prudes. We are straight edge. Well, you are. I'm not. Drink alcohol.
What about the stat at the beginning?
No, caffeine's my favourite drug. What about you?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Like a nice cup of tea.
Yeah. I'd rather have a nice cup of tea when I get up than a big glass of wine.
What about the stat that I said at the beginning where it's younger male urban dwelling pub users? Has it been mostly males that have been on drugs? We know we've had Leanne
I think it's a mix,
and Kylie.
Isn't it?
It is a bit
probably
of a mix. Leanne, Kylie,
it's actually
Izzy.
more female. I think on the show, I think it's been
more 50-50, I reckon.
I think on the show, women have been the victims of drug taking or the addicts, and men have been the dealers or the people that have been. Yeah,
I mean, there's obviously Lee, he's a dealer and
Billy
an addict.
Billy and Lee are like the most recent drug takers.
Summer look victim. Ryan Connor wasn't a dealer, was he? So I suppose he's a bit different. Ryan and Robert, kind of two of the male characters that have
You've had
got
two
hooked.
the two drugs mules that have been in the show were female, Rosie and Karen.
Yeah, that's true.
But then again, if you want to be stereotypical about it, then women are probably more victims than they are perpetrators of crime.
They've also got the more bags, so it's easier to stash them.
Not under their eyes, just generally.
Shall we finish talking about drugs now?
I also like the phrase pub users. Did you clumsily write this? Where did you get the phrase pub user from?
I got it from a government report published last July, I think. And
Who calls somebody a pub user?
Me, somebody who isn't the one. Then obviously that's not the right
Where did you get it that from?
I just read. It was just apparently that if the younger people are more likely than older people to take drugs, males are more likely than female, and people who go to pubs are more likely to take them than people who do not regularly go to pubs.
So you thought pub user was the correct term for that, did you?
Yes, so they're all a bunch of pub users on Coronation Street.
What a bunch of pub users.
Yeah, and it's these people at the top of it, that Toya Battersby and Peter Barlow.
She's a pub user
enabler.
Yeah, she's an enabler. She's an enabler.
Right, I think that's enough drugs for now, everybody. Drugs are bad. Let's go on and do some news.
Some of them are worse than others.
Illegal drugs are bad.
Don't take illegal drugs.
Don't take illegal drugs.
Or deal them.
Listen to Coronation Street to get your highs. Conversation Street. Watch Conversation.
No, don't. Just do what you want, except if it's drugs.
Just don't involve us in it.